structures, of course, because we want to connect places and we want to make places accessible. But as David pointed out at the very beginning of his presentation, of course not every place that has good infrastructure is also a well-connected place. And that's why I think it's very important that in this session we actually talk about in a bit more detail what makes a place accessible and what makes a place connected and what the consequences of good accessibility and good connectedness are. In this session we have 4 speakers. We have a little bit more time than in the first session per speaker. But I would still like to remind the speakers to stick to no more than 12, at most 15 minutes. And as our first speaker, I would like to invite Gunedal Fitja, Professor of Innovation Studies at the University of Stavanger Business School. The floor is yours.
Okay, hello, and thank you very much for inviting me to come here and talk a bit about my research on innovation in peripheral regions. And I'll do it mostly with a bird from Norway, from Brussel, Norway, but partly from a theoretical motivation. The question that I'm starting with here is, how do you promote regional development? And if you look at current theoretical models in the academic literature and also current policy models, they tend to emphasize a lot the issue of endogenous growth. So endogenous growth are models where the sources for growth come from within the region. And in these models, some models focus on local interaction, so the importance of building good collaboration between people within the region and about building trust-based relationships and those sorts of mechanisms. Other theories talk about regional branching and about path renewal, so how regions from the development path that they're on can move on into new areas. I would say that these models, which are the 2 more popular models in the regional development literature, are mostly appropriate for core regions and for larger city regions. Because if you want to have local interaction as your source of growth, you're really dependent on the knowledge resources you have available in your region. So if you have more knowledge available locally, there will be more opportunities to grow. And secondly, for the path renewal industrial branching model, if you're going to branch, then there must be something you can branch into. So it also depends on the thickness of the regional organization. So this presentation will argue that for most peripheral regions, the more important thing is to look at exogenous impulses for growth, because those are going to be quite important for peripheral regions. And then it is really important to be connected to other regions and to have those kinds of networks. So that has a different implication for the kinds of mechanisms that you should foster and the kinds of cultural attributes also that are important. So I will start with looking at industrial branching and how the possibilities for branching depend on the size and density of the region. So this is a map looking at different industries in the Oslo region. And the lines in this map, so the dots are different industries, and the lines are connections between the industries. In those cases where there are lines, the industries tend to employ the same people, so there are a lot of mobility of people between the industries. And the size of the dot is how big that industry is in the Oslo region. So as you can see in Oslo, no industry in particular stands out, and there are a lot of lines. So you can hardly see any individual line. It's just a big cloud for the Oslo region. But if you move out from Oslo towards smaller regions, then this starts to look quite different. So we can come a bit closer to here, and we can look at Tromsø. So in Tromsø, there are still quite a lot of places you can go. In Oslo, you could go pretty much anywhere. In Tromsø, you have some concentration in certain industries. There are still quite a few lines, but it gets quite a lot thinner immediately. In Alta, we see pretty much the same trend. There are one quite large industry up towards the left-hand side, which is shopkeeping. Then right at the middle you have aquaculture, which is an important industry So that's at the core of the network, and in aquaculture you can move into different industries and you can get innovation impulses from different industries. But still there are limitations to where you can go. If you look at the map for Kirkenes, there's basically one large dot, which is mining of iron ore, which is where most of the employment is. And that is not connected to a lot of other industries that are present in the region. So there are limited options for that industry to learn from related industries that have the same skills in the region. Now, considering that this literature would hold that it's hard to learn from other companies in the same industry because they tend to know the same things that you know, and it's also hard to learn from industries that are not connected because they tend to have information that's not relevant for you. There are limited opportunities for local learning for this industry. So what do they have to do? Well, they have to link up to these related industries elsewhere, basically in other regions, if they want to develop innovation. So this is going to be the story, I think, in a lot of peripheral regions. And you don't have to come really to the smallest regions. This is Kongsberg, which in the Norwegian case, I think is considered quite a successful case of regional development. But still you see here that most of the labor in Kongsberg are concentrated in 4 industries that are quite closely together, but that have limited connections to other industries in the region. So for a lot of small regions, this is what it's going to look like, that there are not that many opportunities locally, and you have to branch out. I'll talk a little bit about a survey that we did of firms in Norway and how they draw their sources of innovation. First of all, one of the questions we asked was, who do you collaborate with in innovation processes, and where were those partners located? So these are the 7 different types of partners that we asked about, and they could answer the partner was located either in the same region, elsewhere in Norway, or they were located abroad. So in terms of types of partners, suppliers and customers are the most common types. Quite a lot of firms collaborate with competitors, often in the same region. And universities and research institutes are the least common partners. But the other thing that's interesting here is the spatial distribution of this. So for any given category, collaboration within the region is clearly the most common. And especially if you look at the more knowledge-intensive sources, it's very unusual to go outside of the country and even outside of the region to collaborate with a university or with a research institute. So only 3% of Norwegian firms collaborate with universities abroad, whereas 20% of firms collaborate with the universities in general. So mostly that happens within the region. So in general, Norwegian firms are not that good at going abroad, perhaps. And this has also a spatial dimension. So we looked at these 5 different types of regions. So we have Oslo, we have the 3 other larger city regions, and then we have firms that are outside of any of these city regions. And we can see here that the least connected internationally are firms that are outside of the larger cities. So these are the firms that would have most use, I think, of going outside of their region. But they have the lowest number of partner types, so 0.5 out of 7 possible types of partners on average being used by firms outside of the larger city regions. Compare that to Oslo, where the average firm uses more than 1 international partner, so more than twice as many as firms outside of the major city regions. Why is this the case? Well, partly it's because we have exactly what's being recommended in this literature. We have these thick, trust-based, or what the first speaker today called the bonding types of networks. So if we ask Norwegian managers, do you trust other business managers in the region? They're pretty unanimous in saying yes. We absolutely trust other business managers in our region. And that is regardless of where they are located. So there is a very thick connection and a very strong impulse to go locally. But what is the impact of this on actual innovation output? So in this model, we've tried to look at whether the firms say that they've introduced innovations of any of the 4 types at the top. So product innovations, new to market product innovations, process innovation, and new to industry process innovations. And we've regressed that, controlling for other characteristics on how many regional partners do you say they have, how many national partners, and how many international partners. So if you look at product innovation first, both for product innovation and for new to market product innovation, it is really international collaboration that has a positive impact on the likelihood of innovation. So there's no significant effect of regional national partners, and for regional partners, the effect is even negative, whereas for international partners, there's quite a strong positive effect of collaboration. Collaboration within Norway works a bit more on the process innovation side, but mainly outside of the region, not so much within the same region. So just to show you what this means in practical terms, if we look at new to market innovation as an outcome, the first panel here looks at the effect of regional partners. And as we go from 0 to 7 regional partners, you can see that the line in terms of how much innovation do we predict or what's the likelihood of innovation is pretty flat. It stays at 25%. If we look at the line here for international partners, actually if you don't have any international partners, you're still about 23, 24%. If you move all the way over here, which very few firms do, and have 7 different types of international partners, the likelihood of new to market product innovation increases to almost 50%. So it's almost a doubling of the likelihood of introducing new to market innovation. This depends to some extent on characteristics of the region in which the firm is located. So especially if you're in an R&D rich region, regional collaboration can matter a bit more. If you're at the lower end here and have less R&D in the region, there's no effect of regional collaboration. Whereas if you're in the top and you have a bit more R&D within the region, there's more of an effect of regional collaboration. But the region matters also for international collaboration. So we've looked at whether there's a lot of educated people within the region and how that impacts on the effect of international partners. And we see here that it's mostly in the highly educated regions where you have an absorptive capacity to actually exploit that kind of knowledge that's coming in, that you have a strong effect of international partners. But the big question then becomes, of course, what makes you collaborate with international partners and what kind of firms collaborate with international partners? And this depends very much on whether those firms are able to overcome the geographical distance to their partners. So we've talked about distance being in a lot of dimensions and can be a barrier, but some firms manage to overcome that distance. And to some extent it depends on the size and the characteristics of the firm. But what our research is showing is that it's also a lot dependent on the individuals involved in collaboration and what kind of values and attitudes do those individuals have. So in this model, we've looked at how many regional, national, international partners do these firms have, and what kind of attitudes do the managers express when we ask them about attitude-related questions. So we've asked them about trust, about open-mindedness, and about regional-mindedness, and we've asked about 3-4 questions that try to capture each of these underlying characteristics of the managers. As we see here, the firms that have very open-minded managers, they tend to, especially internationally, be able to develop a lot more connections. So this is controlling for all other characteristics of the firm. So in similar firms, a manager who is very open-minded can still increase the likelihood of international collaboration quite a bit. Conversely, if you look at regional mindedness, the effect is negative. Managers who are too concerned about their region will then have firms that are less internationally collaborative. Looking at basically just the effect of this, here we have open-mindedness and regional mindedness, and we look at how they affect the likelihood of, or the number of international partners that the firm has. So first, for open-mindedness, this is for an average firm in all other dimensions. The firms with the least open-minded managers, they collaborate on average with 0.3 out of 7 international partners. The firms with the most open-minded managers collaborate with 0.8 international partners. So this is more than a doubling of the number of international partners that the firm uses. For regional mindedness, it goes down from 0.9 to 0.4 partners for the most regionally minded to the least regionally minded managers. Just to give you an example of also how this is distributed across Norway. If you look here at the same regions that we looked at before, you will see that managers in Oslo tend to have the most open-minded and the less regionally oriented managers, whereas managers in the smaller, more peripheral regions, they tend to be less open-minded and more regionally oriented. So of course this is going to vary across different regions, but it says something about transport and accessibility not being the only problem for connectivity in smaller regions, but actually some of these cultural dimensions can also be important to look at. So just to show you a little bit of what this can mean, we asked them, for instance, I find it easier to collaborate with local and regional actors than with people from outside the region. Do you agree or disagree with that? In Oslo, 30%, 1/3 of managers agreed. In Stavanger, for instance, a majority agreed, 55%. So twice as many managers almost agreed with the statement in Stavanger than in Oslo. And remember, this is a statement that doesn't make it any easier. It's not associated with the number of regional connections that firms have, but it is negatively associated with any connections outside of the region. Similarly, I find it important to maintain regional employment, even if it's costly for my company. This is kind of more positive for the regional environment. And here we also see quite a lot of differences. So almost 60% of managers in the non-urban regions agreed with this, whereas only 40% of managers in Oslo agreed. So there are systematic differences here. And final one, going more towards open-mindedness, I need to get more insights into other countries' cultures. So here, 57% of managers in Oslo agreed, compared to 42% of managers in non-urban urban regions. So actually almost as many in non-urban regions thought they didn't need any more insights in foreign countries' cultures as those who thought they did. To conclude, I mean, peripheral regions, as we've seen, have limited opportunities for regional branching. And we have also seen that local interaction is generally not very strongly associated, at least with product innovation in the Norwegian case. The only exception being for the most R&D intensive regions, so basically Trondheim. Whereas international interaction has a positive impact on innovation. And this development of international interaction depends very much not only on the characteristics of the firms and of the regions, but also on the culture, which is partly a firm and partly a regional phenomenon. Thank you.
Thank you for this very interesting presentation. And I think the presentation highlighted two very important aspects. First of all, it of course showed the important, the degree of importance of connectedness for the local economy. And secondly, I think what the presentation also highlighted very well was the importance of cultural factors actually in determining connectedness. As our next speaker, I would like to invite Hans Dunder, an economic development officer in the city of Sundsvall. The floor is yours.
Okay. Can you hear me? Yeah. You are here. That's good. Well, my name is Hans Dunder, and I work for the city of Sundsvall. I have been doing so for the last 10 years. Before that, I was working as a consultant, working for the Swedish International Development Agency, working with regional development in the poorest of European countries, in Moldova. But I've been working very much with infrastructure all my life, and therefore this presentation will be very much connected to what Morten, we have been cooperating very much, Morten and I, during the years, what he had described, and how it's the connectivity and sustainable growth is really connected. And this is what I'm doing mainly, working now today with connecting sustainable growth with accessibility and connectivity in relatively remote areas, but also connecting relatively densely populated areas also with its surroundings, and how we get transport solutions for this added value for both Europe as well as the region of the nations. And here we have the same picture. We have this area. We are our regions we are the major supplier for the rest of Europe. This is that we are, and we are working very much towards the old heavy market, but we are and must be more oriented towards potential markets, and that's in the east. And when you look upon this, you see that there is differences between us who are planning society and working the infrastructure. We have a very long time perspective, and we should cooperate with the business sector, which is having their own logical business logics, which are much shorter in perspective, and to connect these. And what we can see is where are now people situated. They are quite coastal orientated. This is a map over lights taken from actually how we are. Well, you can see activity, energy consumption, and light production all over our region, and it's very much oriented toward the coast. And what we get out of this is that we have one big challenge. No, we have two really big challenges in our region or in our area. One is that we have long distances to our markets. The other one is that we are relatively sparsely populated. And we can see this as obstacles, but due to these obstacles, we also have to be smarter than others. We have to find smart solutions. We have to find smart solutions to overcome. And therefore, we are also working very much with these resources that we have. And this is then what we normally see as resources. It's the minerals, which we are, I mean, that's a big issue. And this is due to that we are situated where we are. We have the Fennoscandic shield, which is going from Norway over Norfolk, Sweden, Norfolk, Finland into Russia. And we have enormous assets of minerals. 90% of the iron ore production of the European Union comes from Sweden, so from the north of Sweden. But if the minerals, the wooden industry, the steel, and the pulp, and everything that, sawmills is one thing, energy, but this one is actually the most important resource or raw material that we have. That is the brain power. The raw material which is sitting actually between our ears. And how we deal with that and how we develop that and we use that is one of the main issues. And that's why it's so important to have the academy, which is, so to say, helping to develop or take care, use this power. And as a result of the fact that we are living so sparsely and have such long distances, we have to find very smart solutions, cost-efficient, energy-efficient solutions, and environmental-friendly solutions for transport. But we have also to be able to communicate and cooperate. And as shown before here, it's a question of climate. And therefore, what we see here, one of the important things is that we have actually an innovative climate. And you can see it if you look upon the universities. You have this mineral industry, which you're digging out the iron ore in Kirkenes. But where do you find the effects? You may find it on the university, Technical University of Luleå. There, most people are engaged in developing new ideas how to take care of these minerals and do something with it. And therefore, you can see it's not only the climate, but there's also this cooperation between the academy and what we call the triple helix and the society and the business sector. And you have to find it, and you can see that, well, Luleå doesn't really, it's not enough in itself. you have to cooperate, and then you see the Umeå University, the Mid University, which is Sundsvall Östersund, but also the Trondheim University, as well as the university in Troms, all around the globe. We are very connected around the globe. I have to see these connections. And that we do in this triple helix, and we see that quite much now. But in order to also to overcome the distance problem, and that we are relatively scarcely populated, and that we are not that used as a population to take this step to go from lower education to higher education, our universities must deliver new products. They must deliver products which are actually learning by distance. And then, in order to be able to do that, you have to have broadband. And this broadband is absolutely essential for our region, to connect people and connect knowledge and make it possible for making business. But it's not enough either. As it was said before, we must be attractive. One of these issues and problems that we have is that certain areas are not attractive for young, rich women. Because if you cannot be attractive for that group, you will never be successful. So you have to be able to attract young, young and rich or becoming rich women. When you can do that, then you will be successful. And one example of this, how you use all these items, is this remote tower services that we have put up, which we have in Sundsvall. We are the first in the world. We are 2 years ahead of everyone else with this remote tower. You have this remote tower service center, which is situated in Sundsvall, and we are connecting the first airport, which is off. It's Örnsköldsvik. And we have this Örnsköldsvik remote tower connected, and we are driving that. We have the guys and the girls in the control tower sitting in a bunker, just looking out on screens. Actually, very much safer, 24 hours available, open, close on demand. I myself am a private pilot. I do fly myself around this area. And one of the big issues for me is that they are closing down airports when when Scandinavian Airlines or Norwegian or Widerøe or some other airline, when they have left the airport, they're closing it down. But I want to come there also to refuel or do my business, and it will be very costly to bring out the staff. Or even if, for instance, when you have an ambulance flight, it will take you an hour to get the staff out there to open it up. You can open this directly on this one within 1/10 of a second. So this is also making things so much more cost effective, and and this is happening here, and now we are really attractive, and actually this will be really big business. And it happens where? Yes, in Sundsvall, which is definitely not in the middle of the world, except for remote towers. But one more thing, you have to be attractive for people. You must, and you can see one example for that. That is Åre, which is part of Jämtland. And this is one of these areas where you can see that a small municipality actually attracts people to move there due to lifestyle. And this is the winter, which they are known for, but they have also summer or year-round activity. And this is just the picture you can. And of course, Åre here is the local area for all these Norwegians living in Trøndelag. This is, you have south and north of Trøndelag, but you have also east Trøndelag, and that is Åre. So it's, and for Åre, for Sweden, Värnäs Airport is our international hub. Åre Östersund Airport is just only our domestic hub. But again, we must see ourselves as the primary mining area in the European Union. This is absolutely the backbone of our economy. And we are, but it's also this. When we bring this up in the air, the value that we bring up of the mineral industry is just around about 2 billion euros a year, the annual. But the added value that you put into it within Sweden is 25 times more. You build Volvos, Scanias, you do a lot of things with that steel. You actually move one Eiffel Tower a day from Luleå to Borlänge just to make steel, or coils. 7,500 tons a year daily from Luleå by rail to Borlänge. And you add as much value in the rest of Europe. So if you buy a BMW or Italian shoe, you will have steel from Sweden. But then we have also the other one, which is the forestry. This is our really green gold, especially when we are now thinking of greening from transport. Where will you get? Avinor is doing it, we are doing it in Sweden also, looking upon the possibilities to make green fuel for flights, for airplanes. And that will be done by forest industry, as a forest industry product, actually. Yes? So we have this example, how iron and steel for Europe goes. We are the large provider, we have to bring it down, and copper, same. Forest products for Europe also, that's an example, SCA, which is the third largest wooden industry company in the world, and the biggest private owner of the forest, and it's there, it's bringing all over the world actually, but what we need is also to connect people physically, not only by broadband. We want to come to different places, and one way of doing it is of course to fly. Then we have to have the connection, interconnections, but another way of doing it is to go by train. And to the left here you can see, this is the situation today. It takes relatively long time, and we have problems with the capacity in the system. What we are looking upon is to decrease the time by increasing the capacity in building new rail or double tracks. That will be, because today it takes, for instance, 7 hours or something like that to go from Stockholm to Umeå in the worst case. But the aim is, and it takes 3 hours and 40 minutes to go from Sundsvall to Stockholm. But with these new double tracks and new lines that we will come down to 2 hours between Stockholm and Sundsvall and 3.5 hours between Stockholm and Umeå, for instance. That will make a huge difference and connect people in a very great way, and that will be great benefiting for both the economy as well as for the environment. And in order to be able to do, how do we do it? We finance it. And what do the European level do? Yes, we have the TEN-T, the Trans-European Network for Transport, and the Connecting Europe Facility, which is the financial instrument. But that's quite small money actually. They are giving 50% for the studies and up to 20% for the lines, or these connections between the nodes. But they are giving 30 to 40% for cross borders, because that is a problem. We have this problem that the authorities in Sweden, Norway and Finland, they are very national in their thinking. They have some persons working internationally, but the mainstream thinking is very national, and everything is oriented towards Oslo, Stockholm and Helsinki. This is a dilemma that we have to bring on, and this we can get here. TEN-T and CEF can make the difference, cross-border, and bring those ministers together. Hopefully, I met the minister last week in Åre, and she actually wanted to have, so she will now take the initiative to make a new meeting between the infrastructure ministers between Sweden, Norway, Finland and Denmark within some months, just to discuss these cross-border issues, because we need to connect each other. And this is the thing. We have been working very hard so that the map shall not stop at Stockholm or Oslo or Helsinki or St. Petersburg. There is something about that. And therefore, this to the left you have the core network corridors, which is the 9 main corridors where the mainstream of the money goes. And what we see now is that in the next time, in the change 2017, that we will be included, or that we will include ourselves, because we have so much to offer. It's not that we are, you know, suckers for grants. We are providers of wealth and possibilities, and we will make offers, not like the mafia doing offers that you cannot refuse and you get a bullet otherwise, but we will give you a lot of possibilities and options. And we do it in a cost efficient and energy efficient and also a very environmental friendly way, and making it oil. Yes, 0 minutes. So we will make the good living in this area possible. And that's we do with connectivity. So I stopped there because there was 0.
Thank you very much for this very interesting presentation, and I'm sorry for being so strict with the time, but we have many speakers today, and I think it's important to also have a bit of time left for discussion. In this presentation, I found particularly interesting that you highlighted not only the importance of human capital. I think this is something that we all know, but you actually related this to the attractiveness of a region, and I think this is something that is quite an important issue and that probably deserves a bit of attention. So our next speaker, I would like to invite Sveinung Eikeland, Vice Rector of the Arctic University in Brussel. The floor is yours.
Thank you, and not only in Brussel, but also in Norway and here in Kirkenes. My starting point and my conclusion is that the universities makes region flexible and increase their connectivity. I will talk mostly about how the universities make this internally in the region by integrating it. But also, I think maybe the university is one of maybe the most important institution in order to attract people from all over the world to a region, to the universities. So 2 things there. I will talk about Finnmark. My starting point is Finnmark and the university. But before that, I will start with 2 slides that in a way introduce this concept of remoteness to us and to the region. I think in many ways, if we start in 1945, it was in the beginning of the 1970s, remoteness became an important issue for our region. Because from the 1945 up to about this, we have in a way been a center. There's been a center for redeveloping the region, for building new Norwegian industry and so on. But then in 1972, this plan for North Norway was conducted. And there we were defined as a remote area. This plan used Christella's, the German geographer, as theory, and he made hierarchies of places in Norway and in North Norway, and Finnmark, and the places in Finnmark were at the bottom in every figure. Then it was introduced the importance of logistics from the region and out in the world and out to the center places in Norway. And it was also focused on the problem of the low level of education. This is also about the same time when our university was started. So in a way, our university started when new issues were focused in order to build this region. And after early 1970s, I think there have been 2 long-term processes in developing this region. And again, seen from here in Finnmark and Kirkenes. One is a policy-based much enlarging of the region. We got an action zone which included the North Norway Finnmark, and it's a very important and very well also expensive measure in regional policy. We just discussed that on the yesterday. We introduced a summit policy, which during the time involved more and more regions outside also this county in the Sami industrial policy measures. We got the Russian strategy, which you see here, when opening of the borderline, and in a way to including our industry here in the development there. We got an regional innovation policy, which in fact was also built on an enlargement of the region by including the universities and the institutes in Brussel into this well, triple helix way of sitting on here. And I think also nowadays we got energy strategy, which is building infrastructure from the south of there in order to increase the access to energy. So that is one of the processes. Another process is that until about maybe 15 years ago, we had a situation with very strong industrial centralization, and the problem was how to avoid people to look after the industry in order to avoid centralization. Today, we see more and more focus on extracting resources, and the natural resources are spread around the area, but the people that is the key factor in developing these resources will live close to universities, close to urban centers, as the former speaker said. Mining gives much impacts at the University of Brussels. So what we see now is a quite opposite situation. People are not running after the industry, but you have to find models that makes it possible to develop a modern industry based on people living centrally. Then I go to the university, and what I will first say there is that, and then I go to the applicants for the universities, and then we see that Norwegian universities are regional universities. That means that the existence of a university is an opportunity for young people or for other people in the region to apply for a study. For our universities, about 70% of the applicants is from North Norway. It's about a bit higher than the other universities in Norway. You see the other university in North Norway, University of Nordland, has about the same from Nordland. We have one exemption in Norway for this, and this is the Norwegian University of Science in Trondheim, which has only 30% from the Trøndelag region. So that also means that big universities are developed in big regions. But from our point of view here, this institution is important, these institutions are very important in order to integrate and include the regions. This is only another way of saying that. But this is maybe a more important way to see it. This goes to the fulfilling of the studies, and we will see here that there are 3 high red figures on this matrix, and that is the Norwegian countries. And that means that in our countries, in Finnmark, Nordland, and Troms, it's much more common to fulfill their studies after the age of 30 years old. And that is also an indicator on the the importance of that the university and the university's offers is available all over the region. This is quite different between the North Norway regions and all other regions in Norway. And we see in Oslo, there are more common to fulfill this graduating under 30 years. This is only regional. We will also see this. Here we go to the candidates. We have measured where are they working after they have fulfilled the studies in our universities. This is from this year, and we have measured them 2 to 4 years after they are graduated. Total, we see that 80% of our candidates are then working in North Norway. And we have divided for the companies. So that means again that this institution is not only important for attracting young or older people in the region to the university, but also for the working life afterwards. And we can also see that it is more important close to the university than away from. And we see that if we go to the southern students from southern Norway, they have finished in our university and go back to southern Norway. But the people from students from outside Norway are many of them still in Norway. And then we also see a result of that. We have measured the level of higher education in the working force in the communes in North Norway. Not going into detail here, but we see that around the university campuses or the university college campuses, the level is highest. It's more than 35% of the working force in Tromsø, Bodø, Harstad, and in Karasjok, with a summit of this, but there are no universities. And we see it a bit lower in, for instance, this commune and in Alta and so on. But it is very low along the coast and in agricultural areas. So that means that the coast, which we now travel along with the ship, and so and see the fisheries and see the oil and gas and see the maritime sector, has a very low level of education level if we go to if we measure the high level of that. And here we see about the same situation when we go to high level education in the population, not only the working force. The problem, according to this, is along the coast and in agricultural areas, and we also see this in Sweden and in Finland. This is from this map from Norway. Demographic challenges. When I made this, I made it out from that people between 20 and 29 years old are our most important group as students. 75% of our students is in this group. In 2015, to the left there is a zero level, and we can see that about all regions in north of Ofoten will when we come to about 7-8 years ahead there have lower level. Also the Tromsø region with Tromsø, the fast growing city of Tromsø, will not increase that. The only increasing region is the West Finland. We visited the Kirkenes and we also an Alta is important. And now we are in East Finland, which maybe has the most problematic situation if we go to about 10 years ahead and if we go even further. So Finnmark, which we know is the region where the differentiation is most important in the demographic challenges. And another challenge is that okay, we can measure the demographic changes, but if we divide them into if they are based on the migration internal in the country, and if they include immigration, the figures will be quite different. Here I only taken figures from Tromsø, which is in a way a driving force in demographic development in North Norway, and we see two important numbers there. It's a minus 136, and this is from Tjudlotten. That means that in Tjudlotten, the inland internal migration balance in Tromsø was negative. But if we include the migration, it's positive. And that is the situation in, I think, almost all communes in North Norway, also the biggest. I've seen for Bodø, I've seen for Alta, I've seen for Hamar, they're both the same area. And that means also as a region, we are dependent on this situation, we attract people, but that also gives some impulse to how a university shall be organized, what also we shall do. And one way of following up this is done now in North Norway, what is called conjuncture barometer, what is the English way, but what the last number there said is that in 10 years we will, at the national level, will have 23% more in age of 25 to 35 than we have today. So that is a quite important opportunity to secure the demographic development in the region. And in Denmark, we are for 24%. That means that it's an even higher level. Troms about the same, but the Northern has only 14%. That's a bit more problematic. But then they ask the industry, the university, and others to handle in a way that we do not avoid to lose this way. So that is, I think, we say quite an important challenge in discussing the development of this region in this region. That is it's a 10 years now that is very important in order to secure the development for that. And then I will, I could say very much about innovation. I'm only at the one slide step. We think and we work much with innovation. The students, when we're asking them, having surveyed among the students, they say they will have more and improved praxis. They will have a more frequent contracts with working life, and they will have more career supervising. We try to do something about that, but the answers from the students are very clear. And I also see what we also are doing in turn in the university. We say that innovation has to be learned, and we try to include this in our study programs. We are now discussing innovation terming for the academic step. We have a long time have a researcher terming. We now introduce an education terming, and we now plan to also introduce an innovation terming. That means that yes, I'm finished now. So that means that the staff has an opportunity and they get an opportunity to develop the ideas. And at last, our university is, according to another professor at the University of Stavanger, and then Lune, is quite good in addressing new incentives, industry intensive in the way we work with innovation. But the University of Stavanger and University of Norway is better than us in supporting the existing industry. both of that have to do. Thank you.
Thank you for this very interesting presentation that quite clearly showed the importance of universities, not only in educating young people, but also in keeping them in the region. And I think this is something that indeed we not only see here in Norway, but that we also saw quite clearly when we visited northern and eastern Finland in June this year. And as my last speaker, I would like to invite Tove Sørensen, manager at WHO Collaborating Center for Telemedicine and eHealth, to the floor.
Okay, thank you very much for the invitation and for the chance to come here and speak. And I will say it's been very interesting because my background is in social planning and community studies at the University of Tromsø, and I'm still in Northern Norway, so I'm one of those figures. But for the last 2 decades, I've been working with IT in healthcare, with telemedicine and e-health, and I will spend 12 minutes, no more than 12 minutes, talking about access to health services, which is something that is dear to everyone who doesn't have health or have poor health or even with good health, and the innovation processes in healthcare. So, like this. Well, I will first start with this image, because this old picture, this is from the University of Northern Norway when it was not a university hospital. Before that, when the development of IT in healthcare started. It was in the 1980s when technology made it possible to have patients at one location and the doctors at the other location, and to have communication about healthcare problems. And the reason why it was developing in Northern Norway and in Northern Sweden and Northern Finland, I won't go into that because I have 12 minutes, no more, is what you have already seen by traveling here. But also if you see the inner circle, that is the responsibility for our healthcare region. And if you flip it the other way around, you will come to the south of Denmark. So we have an issue here. We have an issue with the distances and the settlement pattern. In our region, we have 88 municipalities. 38 of those are less than 2,000 people living there. And you can see for yourself, only 4 municipalities have more than 20,000 people living. So health services provision is an issue. Now, and of course, this is also about money. How much does it take to transport patients from where they live to where the hospitals are? These are quite old figures. These are from 2007. But it's a lot of money spent on shipping patients to the hospitals. Then, to add to that, we have other incidents. This is Iceland in 2010, when the volcano ashes made it impossible for planes to fly. I mean, some of you might remember that you were stuck somewhere where you were not supposed to be for 1 week, but you were anyway. And after that, it became even more clear for healthcare authorities that we need to have some other ways of delivering healthcare when you can't ship patients to hospitals and you can't ship doctors to the patients. Now, one concrete example of this volcano incident was that because we had a tradition in Norway, in Northern Norway, to use telemedicine for not so urgent cases like dermatology, psychiatry, and so on and so forth. But then it was more focusing on emergency healthcare issues like stroke issues. And to see how is it possible when someone might suffering from stroke to have access to the expertise. And a telestroke network was developed in Nordland Hospital between Bodø, Stokmarknes, and Lofoten. Now, I have already talked about telemedicine and e-health, but what is it exactly? I'll spend one slide on this. You might have heard the term, telemedicine is quite old-fashioned. It's more like the 1980s, 1990s. Today, you might think about e-health, which is electronic health, telehealth, health telematics, m-health, mobile health, or p-health, personalized health. And there are so many concepts talking about the same thing, which is actually about using technology to improve health. So this terminology will vary about where you are and about the politics. But I think what is important to stress is that it's the process that matters. It's the process where technology is only one of the factors. And the process is nothing if it's not supporting healthcare. So telemedicine e-health is actually the delivery of healthcare and exchange of healthcare information across distances. And I think we can stick to that. So it's the where those circles meet between medicine, between technology, and between organizations. There is where we are when we're talking about telemedicine. I'll give you one example from one of the oldest telemedicine services in Northern Norway, which is dermatology or teledermatology, so treating skin problems. And the hospital in Kirkenes was one of the first pilot hospitals back in late 1980s, where the GP or the doctor in the hospital, local hospital here, will sit with the patient in the local hospital and have video conferencing sessions to the University Hospital in Tromsø. Now, this is a picture of this situation. It's quite cost intensive because you have two doctors, one in each side, and you have the patient there. Now, technology is moving further, and today we can also use still images. This is a picture of nurses diagnosing a patient in a nursing home, also in the university hospital, but a lot of these consultations can actually be done offline. And some of them can also be done using big data, using systems to analyze and to diagnose treatment. Is this a dangerous spot or not? Is this cancer or is it not? Now that was dermatology. We've also have examples of using telemedicine in almost all medical field. This is a picture of Hammerfest. You may recognize it, those who have been here there the last week or the last days. People suffering from kidney failures will need to go for dialysis maybe up to 3 times a week. And to have patients traveling from, let's say, Hammerfest to Tromsø 3 times a week to have their blood changed, it's quite tiresome for the patient, and it's also quite costly. So then to have the dialysis taking place in the local hospitals with video conferencing or just audio consultations by the specialized personnel in the university hospital has been very useful. Now, what does it take to have a telemedicine success? It's an area with different fields. It's combining the organization, the structures, the power, relationship, and training. And to have it anchored in the national plans, in the regional plans, which we've had since 2001 in Norway, is extremely important. And to understand that it's the need for this political and financial mechanism. If it's only something that doctors is doing on Saturdays for no payment at all, it will die out of itself. And to ensure that there is a regulatory framework for providing the services is important, and the standards in place. And then to actually provide a service that is asked for. So there is no such thing that just put up a system and people will start using it. Not at all. It has to be taken care of, all the other areas supporting the service. Now I'll say a few words about innovations, because I will say something about innovations in products and services and processes. Because giving a service, and I will start with an example of up to the corner, which is the Kirkenes region in northwest Russia. We've had a collaboration with them since the 1990s, and talking about remote areas, Norway is not so remote as Kirkenes. And in the 90s, when it was a problem to even have fuel for the planes to ship patients into the regional hospital, they developed telemedicine, but they also didn't have the infrastructure in place. They didn't have the lines to have video conferencing, so they started transmitting images via the old telephone lines and then communicating over the telephone. And that was actually an idea for us who were using video conferencing, that it's possible to use one of those, the biggest electronic health record providers in specialized healthcare, IPS, which is now in the 3 of the 4 healthcare regions, was actually starting up in Wood Hospital and is now one of the big companies in Norway. Another project that was back in the early 2000s was to see how can we communicate health information in a secure way, which was a regional project defining the lines and so on, which is now a state-owned company or organization under the Directorate of Health, the Norwegian Health Network, which is providing secure channels communicating healthcare information from general practitioners to the specialist healthcare. So what we see for the e-health trends is that starting with these consultations between the patient and the doctors to bridge the gap that is there, is now having health information traveling, so the system access to health information. Healthcare services can be much more decentralized than it used to be, and that a lot of patients or consumers or relatives are interested in self-management. I mean, you can use your cell phone, take a picture of whatever you have the sort of problem, and you can send it to whoever you will if you want. Leave alone, you can't do that just like that in Norway because of legal issues, but it is technologically possible. In our center, we've done a survey on the population's use of internet for health purposes since the year 2000. And we did our last survey in 2013, late 2013. Now, it's quite difficult to read here, but I won't go into the details. But what's quite interesting to see is that patients are ready, and they were ready in year 2000. They were ready in 2013. They are ready today. But the provisional services are not there, or they're not there to a big extent. So they will also look for international e-health providers in EU. There are prevention and self-management are the services most in demand. And what we see is that there are social inequalities. That people, it's a gender difference, it's a difference between in education for those who are seeking e-health services. I'll end with this one. The University Hospital Northern Norway has been a WHO collaborative center for telemedicine and e-health since 2002, exactly because of the long development of telemedicine in Northern Norway and because of the international collaboration with Northwest Russia. We support WHO and member states in their work with countries, with research and dissemination, and in the field of e-learning and human resources development. I'll end this. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you very much for this fascinating presentation that showed how technology can help to overcome the problems related to long distances. We have approximately 15 minutes left for discussion, and I would like to invite all speakers to the stage and like to open the floor for questions. If you have a question, please remember to briefly introduce yourself before you ask the question.
Hans Edlund, County West Norland. I would like to ask Mrs. Sorensen about do you work together with Västerbotten in Sweden? They have very much e-health and glesbygdsmedicin, I don't know what is the name is. Sparsely populated areas medicine, yes. And for information I can say that in Västernorrland we have a mobile truck for tooth care that are going around the whole county for the elderly care and for the children's school. Thank you.
Thank you. I was tempted to say we are competing with the Swedes, not collaborating, but it's not true. We're collaborating with another regions and with, all Sweden and in Finland. And there's a lot of similarities, but also a lot of differences. So I see there's a lot to learn about how to organize services and which type of technology to use, and also in the research area.
Thank you. Any other questions?
I have a question for Fitra. Based on your findings, what would you recommend regional policymakers in the north of Norway to do? What are a little bit the policy implications on the research that you would suggest?
Well, I think there are two things. Firstly, focusing on exogenous sources of growth, especially in the peripheral regions, I think is important and is overlooked quite a lot by policy. And secondly, focusing also on the softer side of institution building, so on the cultural elements and on giving people international experiences and helping them to bridge these international networks and connect outside of that region are the two most important things.
On that, because that is quite important on this idea of exogenous sources of growth, because usually we do actually exactly the opposite, and we recommend endogenous sources of growth. So what you have in mind is, for example, having a vision, a strategic vision of the region itself on global value-added chains, for example. Have you also in mind things like borrowed agglomeration effects for rural regions that are not too far from cities? What kind of exogenous factors are you contemplating?
Yeah, I think this position of the region in global production networks and in global value chains is an important element. But I would also focus especially on the knowledge side of linking up to centers of knowledge production and complementing those with the internal knowledge sources that the region can have.
Yes, I very agree with Rune, but I will also add that much of the development forces we see here, we see in Denmark now and have seen the last year has been related with entering of multinational companies, and the political answer for that is quite important. I think is that they and the state mainly has required them to this local content concept. That means requiring that they have to organize their operations and development processes and their contracts and so on, so that they are adapted with the regional industry. And I think that this also could be an interesting answer for this, because then they are in a way they have to take the local and regional enterprises in to their sphere and give them opportunities to take part in new networks and so on.
Well, I'm living in a little small town which is named Boldness, and it's only 26,000 inhabitants, and it's outside of the NSB area, but it's 2 hours south of Sundsvall where I work. But there we found, but also in Sundsvall and the Sundsvall region, is that enlarging the region where you can find your work or study, by decreasing the time it takes to commute, actually, to make it possible to commute. That is an important factor, because then you have a lot of more opportunities. The smallest municipality around Sundsvall is 10,000 inhabitants. They have about 100 branches to choose between. But if you regard yourself as part of the region, then you will have 500 branches to choose, and a lot of companies or organizations within the branch. You can make some kind of a career or something. But one of the most important things is that in the little small town like ours, where people were not used to get higher education, is that we formed a study center locally, which was connected to universities, but several different universities, not one university, but we got from Dalarna, from Sundsvall, from south of Sweden, and the average student, actually, the average was a female persons with 2 kids, recently divorced at the age of 32 or something like that, which were taking the next step in life. Sometimes it was the way that they became so knowledgeable, so they divorced after that, because the guy didn't understand. But this is definitely, and you could see that we had a real social impact, bringing out this and making it easy for those to take the next step in life.
Okay, any other questions? If not, then I have a question. We heard in the first presentation, we heard how important cultural attitudes are for the connectedness of the firm. And my question is whether you think this is something that public policy can affect, and if yes, what could public policy do? And maybe this is something I would like to ask all panelists.
I think we have had public policies trying to affect culture, and especially building trust in communities. So there has been a great push towards that. And I think what our findings are showing is that trust matters a lot for the local connections, but not so much for other types of connections, where other kinds of cultural attributes are more important. And if you can build trust on a more kind of bonding social capital, then you can probably also stimulate to building this open-mindedness. I think education is certainly an important part of that, but also, like we talked about earlier, airports, for instance, we talked about the multiple dimensions of proximity, and time is also one of those. So travel and temporary proximity is one issue, I think, and also being out to study and then coming back, maybe. So there are numerous ways in which these kinds of attributes can be stimulated.
Well, there is one thing I've been thinking about. One of the problems that we have with these small communities, which are not connected to the world, is that you tend to become, well, looking at your down like this and don't take in the external world and understand how things are connected. And actually, one good thing about this, that we have this refugee issue, is that is coming a lot of new blood and a lot of new thinking. And it's, for instance, a small little village just 20 kilometers from where I live, they were very, very afraid of this new persons coming. But now, about 1 year later, after having had big problems, a lot of resistance against these newcomers, it has turned around, and they have become an asset. And that you have, all of a sudden, it happens something in that little village. They have become international. And so it might be that this refugee issue will push this development faster than we could ever believe.
Yes, I also one question about this to Rune, because you found that people with or leaders with a high level of what you call regional mindedness, and the lack of trust with other partners, wasn't that? So I was just a little more confusing. What is the real reason for that? People like me with the regional mindedness, we see this because we don't like it. I like to see it. Then this is one other is that I think what universities and the university college are having and they do more and more is to increase the importance of the students having contacts with other culture and students from other countries. now it's much more common, for instance, that Norwegian students take part of the master degree, for instance, in other countries. And I think that this development has to be forced. And I think also what I see is that the students want the processes and this development. So I'm quite optimistic for this. But I'm not sure about the real relations. But once I be a regular now, man or woman, and having lack of trust to others.
I think innovation is all about culture, and I think innovation has nothing to do with regions or national or local. Sorry to say, but it's not my field. But when it comes to technology and technological innovation in healthcare, which I know something about, it's trust is just has to be there, because if you don't trust your colleague you're working with, because technology makes everything so transparent, it's possible to see into processes. And if you don't have trust, if you don't trust that the information is used properly, you will be in trouble. And when it comes to policy and how policy can provide trust, I'm not sure if it's possible, but I think policies need to be there to make it very clear and very transparent. What are the frameworks? What is the framework for financial? What is the framework for the legal issues and so on and so forth?
Thank you. These are definitely very good points. We have time for one last question. If nobody has a question, I use the opportunity and ask one last question to the panelists. As part of this study, we of course look at all 14 different regions. But our goal is not only to look at each region individually, but we also want to look at the NSPA region as a whole. And what I would like to ask the panelists is, what do you think could be done to increase the connectedness of those 14 NSPA regions with each other?
I could perhaps start, because I mean, every one of us has now come here to Kirkenes from different areas. And most of us, at least we who have been flying here, we have gone, for instance, via Stockholm, Oslo, and to Kirkenes. So we have made a U-turn, a long turn. And so we have to have not only broadband connections and road connections, but we have to have both, well, rail connections as well as air connections, making it easier to make business. I was brought up on the Swedish-Finnish border, and my father was dealing with both Sweden, Norway, and he was dealing with trucks and buses and so on. And he was making a lot of business due to that he had knowledge about the different cultures. And so we have to have this knowledge about different cultures, how we behave and how we do business, for instance, because it's a difference. If you do business with a Finn, it's definitely not the same way of doing business with a Norwegian, or not to speak about Russians. So we have to learn by doing, so to say. And we have to make it easy to travel over the borders. And so therefore we have to find a way of seeing that we will make added value of this, which make it possible for our national authorities to put in, for instance, some start-up money for that kind of services.
Yeah, I think the other thing, besides being able to connect, and where this cultural aspect really comes in, is that you also have to want to connect. And I think there is a problem that our media and our attention often is oriented within the country and towards the national centers. And our sphere of attention doesn't really go across the borders to the same extent as it should. So I think you need to think about those two issues together and look at both, do you want to connect, and then how can you connect if you do want to.
I think what has been mentioned here is many of the important roads here. Because when I heard Torbjørn 3 wise men, but they were women in that group. And Torbjørn's examples were also mentioned there, I think, in a way. And I think that it is important to take away these types of obstacles that you showed, and that they also have said to their 3 governments. And that also means that when we discuss innovations in Northern areas, I also think it is very important to discuss transport logistics in innovation. Especially the innovation we discuss is about transport solutions.
I would just like to add that in addition to motivation, I think there has to be some framework in place. We can't do anything with geography. I mean, we can have better roads and better lines and so on, but we're living in a connected world, and it's possible to connect, although we can't meet physically. But I think what is important is to have like research grants or development grants that would actually kind of force us to seek advice from our neighbors. Now we are working in this area. What can you contribute? And not just something that is superficious, that we are just collaborating because there is a grant there, but that it's actually providing some concrete results.
Okay, one last point.
I will have a concrete example, because we can see it in between Sundsvall, Östersund and Trondheim area. What must be recognized is from the Norwegian Parliament that this part to electrify and upgrade the line between Meråker and Trondheim, or rather the Swedish border and all the way down to Trondheim, would be very great, because if we had not, if we had still have been a union, 1905 hadn't happened, then it would be absolutely natural that you had a line going between one of the big towns like Trondheim and Stockholm. That would be an issue, but now it is. So in order to make it possible, because we have very lot of attractions and possibilities, but then to really organize that the students are able, because you have something very positive in this University of Trondheim. You have what we call the kärlighetsgaranti, the love guarantee, which is making, we are only offering the students a living guarantee, that they have a flat where they can live, which is quite dull. But it's quite interesting to go to universities if you have that kind of attraction that you have in Trondheim. So more of that of attraction, so then you will have more of business over the borders.
Thank you, and thank you to all our panelists. That has been a really interesting discussion. We have now a break of approximately 25 minutes, and we meet here again at 5 o'clock sharp.